So it said in the Mishnah that anything that comes out of a tree, so is not tameh with tumas oil, except for flax. So now the Gemara says, Manola, and how do we know this? Amar Rabbi Lazar. So we learn it out from Gomar oil. So it's Gzeirus Shava. So Gzeirus Shava, as we'll soon see, Gzeirus Shava is a dairai. So let's go to Chav Ches Amid Aleph. Mishkan, we learn it out from Mishkan. So this is going to get us into the famous issue of the Tachash, which was an interesting creature, as we're going to learn today, that was used by Moshe Rabbeinu and Betzalel to build the Mishkan. So Gemara says, Ksiv Chacha, so it says, by the Oyel Tumah, so Zois HaTorah Adon Kiyamus Ba'oil. Now, that pasuk should be pretty familiar because that's the pasuk that introduces, first of all, Parshas Chukas, and also the Parshas the halachas of Parshas, the Parsha of Tumas Oyel, and all other halachas that are very, very important to us today also. It says, so now the other pasuk says, by Yifra says Oyel ala Mishkan. So over there it says oil, and when Moshe Rabbeinu put the oil on the Mishkan, so what does that mean, the oil on the Mishkan? So if you ever, I don't know if anybody has the Mishkan book, I meant to try to hold it up, but the other night I didn't do so well with holding things up, so at least on this particular Zoom. But if you have the old Mishkan book, or there's a newer one with kind of like a little bit better pictures, so it shows that there were three, at least according to one sheet that we'll have in a minute, the Machlokes Tanoim, there were three different animal type of hides that were on the Mishkan. And this is called putting the oil on the Mishkan. So it says over there, Mala halon shel pishtan, kari oil. So just like over there, we find that this was made out of flax, that particular part of the covering on the Mishkan. And it was called an oil, afkan shel pishtan kari oil. So what we learn from over here is that when you put something on top of the oil, so that's that on top of the Mishkan, it's called an oil. So over here also, it can become tameh when it's over a dead body because it accepts the tumah. So Gemara says that that's not so pashut. But now let's take a look at this. So if we say that flax is makabel tuma, so then it has to be shizurin. It's when the thread has been twisted already, the chut and kafel shisha, and the threads were 6 times. In other words, it keeps getting folded over 6 times. Afkan over here also we should say shizurin v'chut and kafel shisha. Then it has to be twisted, because that's the way that you make this particular type of flax, and it has to be kafel shisha. So Gemara says that's what we would have thought. Talmud Leimer, oil, riba. So there's a riboy. The riboy, since it says oil twice, so what you learn out from this Gzeirus Shava is that even though it wasn't the kind of cloth of material that was used in the Mishkan on the oil, but it also is makabel tumah. Gemara says, wait a minute, oil riba, if we're going to say that it's marbe, so I feel called milanami, so it should be also marbe everything else. So how come we said before that anything that comes from a tree, anything that's like considered to be a wood, so that's not makabel tuma? That's what we just learned. Gemara says, in Cain, because Gzeirus Shava, because we said there's a Gzeirus Shava. Now here it's very important to know that Gzeirus Shava is something that in Adam done Gzeirus Shava l'mekem kibul mirabbi. A Gzeirus Shava is mamish accepted Torah misinai dor achador achador. A kal v'chomer, sometimes a person can be figuring out a new kal v'chomer, but not a Gzeirus Shava. So we knew that there's a Gzeirus Shava. Once we know that there's a Gzeirus Shava, you can't have a Gzeirus Shava that doesn't accomplish anything. So Gzeirus Shava mayahani. So what does the Gzeirus Shava accomplish? Because what does the Gzeirus Shava say? That we say that these two things are similar, so we know that already. Morah says, no, we're going to learn like this. Malal and Krushim, just like in the Mishkan, there were wooden planks or beams, and they are also called an oil, Afkan Krushim. So also when it comes to the Tumah, that there's a roof that's made out of these kinds of Krushim, so they're also used to be Makabel Tumah. So if there's a dead body in a room where there are Krushim, so it's Makabel Tumah. So Morah says that why don't we say that we should learn this? The Morah says no, that there's a chiluk between the covering on top of the Mishkan and the wood beams of the Mishkan itself. Amakra, because the pasuk says, "Vasi says kroshim la Mishkan, Mishkan kari Mishkan." So ve'ein kroshim kari Mishkan. So the Mishkan itself, in other words, the covering. And this is very interesting because we have Truma, Tetzava, Yaakov, Pekuda. We just learned all these parshias, and we learned all about the Mishkan. So we say the Mishkan, we always think of the Mishkan as the building. But it's not so pashut, because for this Gemara, it sounds like that the covering over the Mishkan, that means those different animal hides and different cloths, that's what's called Mishkan. But in any case, Vein Krushim, Kuriya Mishkan. The Krushim are called Krushim, they're called beams, but they're not called Mishkan in and of themselves. If that's the case, so what do we do with the following pasuk? It says that you should make a covering for the oil. So we should say so that the covering is not called an oil. But before we said that the word oil also includes the coverings and all the coverings. So Gemara says, Ella, therefore, Rebbe Lazar. So it must come to teach us what Rebbe Lazar asked the Shaila. Let's say you have an oil, like for instance, our tents, canvas type of tents, or something that's made from a non-kosher animal. So would that spread tumas oil? In other words, if there's a dead body in the oil and a person comes in, would he become tameh from that? So Gemara says, we're going to say like this, a kal v'chaimer, because if the hide of a kosher behema, which is used for the covering of the Mishkan, so that doesn't become tamei with tumas oil, so our behema tamei and mibaya. So of course not an our behema tamei, because we learn everything out from the Mishkan. So if in the Mishkan we only use an our behema tahira, so of course then an our behema tamei would not spread any kind of tumah. Marin says, no, shiny hasam, the hadra at hadri kra. That's different, because the Torah repeated the word oil, because it says, v'nasu esirias hamishkan, ves oil mayad michseu hatachas asher olav. So what do we have over there? Makish elyon l'tachna. So we have over there, as we said, a number of the coverings of these hides that were on top of the Mishkan. So we make a hekish from the top one to the middle one. What do we say? Matachton kari oil, just like the one that's right on top of the Mishkan is called an oil. Af elyon kari oil. So also the one that's not on top, but it's a little bit higher. So that's also called an oil. So since we said that all of those covers were made from animal hides, so they can all be mekabel tumah. So Morah says, now let's go back to Gufa by Rebbe Lazar. Let's go back to Rebbe Lazar's Shaila. So we asked the Shaila, what about the hide of a behemoth tameya? Could it spread tumah in an oil? Where it says, what's the Shaila? So we said that, of course, it doesn't, because we said that they weren't even used in the Mishkan. So if they weren't used in the Mishkan, so we had that kal v'chaimer. So Amar Vada Barahava said, Tachash, Sheibi me Moshe kami boilei. So now we come to that famous Tachash. The Tachash, as we'll soon see, was a very special animal, and I'm going to learn something out today that I hope we will be able to learn something from on a very personal basis. So even though it was a very rare, strange animal, but there's something that we can learn from this animal. So the shaila was because the Chachamim did not know exactly what kind of a beast this was. I'm definitely not saying animal, because he had a shaila if it was even an animal at all, or if it was a wild beast. In other words, if it was behema or a chayah. So the Gemara says, what's the shaila? Tanina, we learned in a brisa. What does the brisa say? There's a rule which the Gemara, its first thought is only shaykh to the Mishkan, is that when we talk about Melecha Shamayim, what's Melecha Shamayim? So the Gemara thought that that's not just a religious thing that we do. As we'll soon see, it is all kinds of religious things. But they thought Melecha Shamayim means building something for Shamayim, which means, as the Chassidim call it, Dira B'Tachtainim. Kadosh Baruch Hu Kavayachol had a taiva to have a Dira B'Tachtainim to dwell amongst us, and therefore he gave us the mitzvah of a Mishkan later on, the Bais HaMikdash. And by the way, Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, this is one of the references to the matzav that we stand in today, or we sit in today, is to have a Migdash Ma'at. The Navi Yecheskel tells us, V'ehi lahem Migdash Ma'at. Our little Beis HaMikdash is really mamish, a microcosm of the big Beis HaMikdash. So we have to have Gagu and V'kisuf. We spoke about it last night. We have to have yearnings to go back into our shuls properly, of course, to go back with B'dechila Rechima, with Pachad Pchodim, that we should do properly what we're supposed to do in the shul. So in any case, that's called Melech HaShamayim. So Gemara says that we learned so we know already that you can't use any kind of a behemoth to meya. So if they use the tachash, so there's no question that it was a behemoth to hayra. So Rabbi asked the shaila based upon this. So let's take a look at what he learned the Bais. Rabbi Yehudah, it says in the Bais, there were two covers of different types of hides over the Mishkan. One was these red, the hides of reddish elam, of reddish rams. Now others say that elam adamim, we'll go into Mitzvah Shem not today, that elam adam means that they were reddened artificially, and almost like, like making them red. But we'll talk about this later on. And the other cover was from Oris T'chashim. Now we come to this famous machlokes. The way, if you Mishkan, bring down this machlokes, and they follow one of the opinions, but I think they have two pictures, if I remember correctly. It was really one covering, and it looked like a certain animal. It's called a tlo ilam. Now, what in the world is a tlo ilam? We don't really know, but it's some kind of a cat, like some say even a polecat, if I remember correctly, when I last looked it up, that it lives in the trees. And if you see pictures of these, not big lions, tigers and things like that, but smaller cats that they mamish dwell in the trees. That's why they're actually dangerous, because they can jump down on people, and they're called tlo ilan. So Gemara says, "Tlo ilan tamihu." So if it's supposed to be like a tlo ilan, so the Gemara thought that it's like a tlo ilan, because he said, "Michse echad haya v'daima kimin tlo ilan." So the Gemara thought at this point that daima means it's similar, it's almost exact. What does similar mean? Exact. So then the kasha would be that l'chayra, that it could be an animal that's tamei, and it is tamei. But said no hachim kaman. This is what Rabbi Nechemia meant. He didn't say that. He said kamat lo ilan hu sheyesh bagavnim harbe. It's a very colorful animal. V'leit lo ilan, but it's not a tlo ilan. It's also tamei. So a tlo ilan, let's say it's like I said, a polecat. So that's a treifa animal, but the tachash is a kosher animal. What do they have in common? It has in common, as we'll soon see, that it's very, very proud of its colors. It's a little bit like a peacock, it struts. We'll soon see. So now, Rav Yosef brings a riot to this. So in his pshat in Reb Nechemia, Rav Yosef, because if that's the case, so Hainu de Targumina, and that's what the Targum says. Sasgoina, what is Sasgoina? Shesos begavnim harbe. It's very proud of the fact that it's beautiful. But how come the Targum could have translated it as tlo ilan? So here we have to understand that tlo ilan is an Aramaic phrase. So the Aramaic phrase would have meant that it's tlo ilan, but since it didn't, so it's a raya that it translated it as shesos begavnim harbe. Now, we don't have time right now, but the Chassidus Svarim especially talk about this a lot, that the mila of this animal, why it was created for this, or it was chosen for this, we'll soon see what that is that because it's like, for instance, those that say or ever learn the Perek Shira, which mostly the ladies do. So, but in Perek Shira, there's all these animals, and they sing a certain Shira. So the Mabit, the Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and a few others that have a pirish on the Perek Shira, they say that it says the pasuk that defines itself. In other words, it doesn't really say a pasuk. There's no pasuk. But Chazal figured out a pasuk that when it kind of struts around, showing how beautiful it is, or how powerful it is, or whatever it is, how much it serves human beings. So that's the essence of why it was created. So this animal also, it's the lashon is shesos begavnim harbe, like I mentioned, the peacock. It goes around opening up its feathers. I mean, it's not on feathers, but a peacock has feathers. It shows off. It's a show off. That's a good thing, because you're showing, and that's what all of us have to do. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we're human beings. We were created. We're not only human beings, but we were created. Atam kriyim adam ve'eino mis'olam kriyim adam. We're the pinnacle of creation, and we have to remember Kadosh Baruch Hu created us for a reason, to learn Torah, do mitzvahs, daven. So that's something to be very happy about. As we enter Heilig Yom Tov, we should try to remember to be happy with what we are and what we have. So Rabbi
Similarly, the Shamir.
The Shamir is the same thing, right? Very
also
good.
Created just for one specific purpose.
Right. It was created for a temporary period of time, and it crawled along, and it broke through the rock. Very good. So Rabbi said, so now, so what happened? So we learned that Rav Yosef holds that the hide of these kosher of these unkosher animals, so they were not makabel tumah. So now the Gemara brings another sheet. Rava says, no, we learn that from another place. What's from the other place, the Sanya? Because we learn the Raisa, or when the Torah talks about that certain hides can become mitzayroim, they can become full of tzaras. So it says or, and then it says oiva or. So what it means is like this. It doesn't say, it could have said just the word or, and it says or oiva or. So it says or an animal hide. What do we learn from there? Riba oid behemoth tameya. This comes to teach us also that a behemoth tameya can also become tamei tzaras. V'shaloka biyad kayin. So now let's say the kayin took a look at it and he said everything is fine. And then afterwards it started to develop tzaras. So kotzat mikulan v'osachas mehan menayin. So let's say a person took a piece of all sorts of different types of clothing, and they're all mentioned in the pasuk. And he made one big article of clothing out of it. He made a big dress or a suit or something like that. So the shaila is that makabel tumah? The rest of the Talmud Leimer, therefore the Torah says oy b'chol molechas or. So what does that mean? That when it comes to tumah of tzaras, so the Torah does not make any chiluk between tameh and tar, between something that's kosher and not kosher. So l'chayr, we can say the same thing that about tumah is the same thing, that something that's kosher and that's not kosher. So either one of them can spread the tumah of an oil when there's a dead body in it. But you could ask a kasha on this. By Negoyim, we're very, very machmer, because the usual size of something is even for tumah is some kind of a bean. It's adasha. It's some kind of a lentil, but it's not shesi ve'erev. Remember, she said shesi ve'erev. We said is the type of thread that goes up and down, that's vertical, or the type of thread more or less that's horizontal, is the erev. So, but either way, the woof and the warp and all these things. So it's very, very tiny, and yet it's mekabel tumah. So you can't bring a raya from something that needs a larger substance to make it tameh. So you can't learn from that. So Rabbi says, what can you learn from? Rabbi is developing how he learned where we can learn this from. So Elugama Mishratzim, he's going to learn from Shratzim. What do we learn from Shratzim? This time we learn in Raisa. Raisa says like this, or. So again, it says Ainli Ella or Behemoth Tahira, because when the Torah was talking about or over there before, it meant a kosher animal. So or Behemoth Tameya Menayin. How do we know that an or Behemoth Tameya can also pick up the tumah of a sheretz? Talmud Lama Oy or. So what is Oy or? So Oy or is a riboy. But you can ask a question that also Rav says. Rav is building up to what is the final analysis. So he says no. Could learn how to So again, the sheretz size of a tumah is adasha is the size of a lentil. So, but the piece of a dead body that spreads tumah is a kazayas. So since by a sheretz we're more machmir, so you can't learn that. So where it says no, the goyim yechichu, we'll bring a raya from the other way, from the goyim. In other words, that's gonna prove the point, because by the goyim, so even though tzaras requires a little adasha, right? So it's not going to become tamei. So, but a tzaras will. So mela, the hide of a non-kosher animal also. So Rabbi says v'chazra did. So now we didn't learn from any of these one things. It's like the beginning of Bava Kama, if you remember this, you can't learn out from one of these things, but outside of Shavush ben, you can learn out from the two of them together. They both have an animal hide, which becomes tamei. And this halacha that the hide of a non-kosher behema is the same as a kosher behema. So I'm going to learn also the same thing, is that or tamei boy, that the hide of a non-kosher animal will spread to him. First we start with a behema tahira, then we'll learn out of a behema tamei. So in other words, so basically Rava says now that we learn it out from a combination of tzaras and shrotzim, and now the Gemara says that that's also a problem. Not by Rava, but notice this, that somebody else named Rava, but it's not our Rava, the famous Rava of Rava Vabaya. Amle Rava mi barnish lo Ravashi. So Rava barnish said to Ravashi, equal mifach, I have another kasha. Both of these things and tzaras, so they both become tamei with something that's less than a kazayis. So time of a mace, she'ena metame elu b'kazayis. Only a kazayis min mace is metame. So therefore, you can't learn one from the other. So therefore, Elam or Rav Barnish. So Rav Barnish said, now we're going to go to Amud Bais. The Gemara says, Asi b'kavachayim minoitz shel izim. So we need a kavachayim, but we're going to learn out from the hair of a goat, but it's not the hair of a goat that is shorn, where you like shave it. That's not so good. We're talking about the plucked hairs of a goat, which produce apparently a very fine cloth, a much better cloth. Shei metame b'negoyim. By negoyim, it's not metame, but metame b'oil. So it is metamin oil mace or be'emitamation metame b'negoyim. So we said that the height of a be'emitamay is metame, and in addition metame b'oil mace. So of course it should be metame b'oil mace. So Gemara says, okay, that seems to be a good right. But then the Gemara says that maybe that the fact that the or of a tummy behema, that it can become tummy betumis oil, is not so pashut. Velo the tani Rav Yosef. What do we do with this Rav Yosef? Rav Yosef said lehuchshur b'melecha shamayim ela or behema tara bulvad. So we said that in order to do melecha shamayim, so we saw before we said that we thought that melecha shamayim means like the building of the Mishkan, Mirat Hashem, the building of the Bais HaMikdash. So, but he said l'may hilchasa. Why are we learning it today? It says this is a halacha, and this seems to be a halacha psuka that's negeya bisman hazeh. So, by the way, there's a very interesting discussion of this. I'll just mention very, very briefly that the Rambam, of course, tells us a lot of things that are not negeya today. They'll be negeya mitzvah when Mashiach comes, based on Mikdash, Karbonos, etc. The Torah and the Shulchan Aruch decided to leave it out. So over here we see that when Rav Yosef says that lehuchshu b'lecha shamayel la'or be'im, so it seems that when the Gemara asks l'may hilchasa, the Gemara seems to feel that the way that he said it indicated that it's practical today. So why that is a very interesting discussion in the Rishonim Nachrem. So anyway, the Gemara's first teretz is Litfilin. So that we have to know that if you're going to write a pair of tefillin, the meaning over here, the parshias, so the parshias have to be on something that comes from a kosher behema. So the Gemara says tefillin behedjik sibu. What's the proof of it? Leman tia teretz Hashem beficha. And what do we learn over there? Min hamuta beficha. It has to be from something that you can possibly eat, from a behema that you can eat. So we already have a pasuk for that. So we don't need this to learn it from. Ela la'oram. So the Gemara says, no, maybe it's not even talking about that. We're talking about the bias. Tefillin have, as we know, two parts, the parshias and the bottom. So the bottom, today, you tell this to a bottom maker, that you could use the leather of a non-kosher behemoth, will go crazy. Chas v'shalom, that's from this Gemara, right? They all know it's from this Gemara. So what do we learn out? That the bottom also have to be made from a kosher behemoth. Where it says, no, that's not where we learn that from, because we learn shin shel tefillin halacha l'moshe misinai. The shin that's on the shel rosh. Reb Kivego over here points out in the Gilyon Hashas that this is not on the shel yat. So he says, well, why couldn't we say that we needed this drasha for the shel yat? There's a whole discussion in the Achronim. But if you look at the Gilyon Hashas, the great Reb Kivego says he doesn't know the answer tzarachian. Sometimes he just says that, because he wants to give us a little something to think about. But he said that the kasha is better than the teretz. So what about the shel yad? We're not going to answer it right now. Maybe Mitzvah Shem Motzi Shabbos, we'll talk about the svasemes and the briskers. They all have a teretz to that. So, but anyway, shin shel tefillin halacha l'moshe misinai. So since the shin is something that's written, so l'chayra, so once it's written, so just like we said before that you can't write with anything from a behemah tameya, so the bias also can't be from a behemah tameya, it has to be from a kosher animal. Why? Because you're putting in letters. So Morah says, So it must be a lekorcha b'sar l'toy from begin. So we're talking about all the inside sewing that not the bottom. The bottom has a shin, so that's what has to be written properly on the aura of behemoth tahira. By lekorcha b'sarin, sometimes we use the hair, and sometimes we use begidden. We use the sinews. That sinews means the capillaries and the veins and the arteries and the all the different types of things. Sinews can also be, sometimes they say muscles and ligaments and things like that. That's all under the word gidden. So anyway, so all these things that you're going to sew with. So and by the way, over the centuries, sometimes they use things that were shasat like as I said, like capillaries is the best thing, but you could use a muscle or a or a ligament. So in any case, so Gemara says, no, we don't need, this is a new halacha that we just derived. Because we learn the Raisa, we all know that sometimes the Sefer takes a look, and from his look, he doesn't use like a measuring thing. That's supposed to. He's just supposed to take a look with his eye. He says, oh, your tefillin, they're 50 years old, they're not square anymore, so you have to redo them. Well, the corners are not exactly on the squares. So nichrach is b'sa'arin, so they have to be wrapped in as far as begidden. So they have to be made, when they're made, they're wrapped with their own hair and sewn with their own sinews. In other words, from the same behemoth. In fact, that's a chumrah, that you can't just take one behemoth, let's say a goat, and you can use it from another kosher behemoth. It has to be from the same behemoth. That's a part of the Rosh Halach L'Moshe Misinai. So again, we don't need a brisa to tell us this, or Tanoim or Amoraim. It's Halach L'Moshe Misinai. So Gemara thought now, Elul Ritzuas, that what we need is for the Ritzuas, for the straps. That the straps also have to come from something kosher. It says, Rabbi Yitzchak said, Ritzuas Shechayra, it's Halach L'Moshe Misinai. So the fact that they have to be black is also Halach L'Moshe Misinai. So by the way, this raises, not a good time now, but should both sides be black? A lot of people these days have both sides. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky, so Gesundsein, said it's absolutely not necessary. I think he said his father didn't have it, his grandfather didn't have it, but it's a good thing. Reb Chaim endorsed it. It's not a bad thing. It's not like you suddenly, what the some Sefer called Chodesh Asim and Atayra, you're now going to make up new things. It's simply a shmira. If it turns around, you're not supposed to have the white showing. It's a bad siman, etc., etc. So have black on both sides. I finally gave in and I got myself, the Ritzuas on both sides. And from by then my children already had the white. But now any of my children that now have tefillin being changed, I put black on it, and I get those that I got from my grandchildren have black on both sides. It's a good idea, but it's not the halacha l'moshe misina. Let's be clear about that. So anyway, the Gemara says now the gemir is shleiros. So Tahiris migamir. So good. So you told me that there's halacha l'moshe misina. They have to be black, but who said that they have to be from a kosher animal? So Gemara says, "My have a law tachash." So fine, we finally came up with that. Maybe that's why we need the brisa. Okay, we need the brisa and the Gemara to figure out that the tefillin have to be from something kosher, only in the straps, in the ritzuas. Now the Gemara says, let's go back to the tachash. My have a law tachash shoybi me Moshe. Was it kosher or not? We're not clear from all this. Rabbi Loy, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Meir said, Tach b'shoybi me Moshe, Bria or Beria. My Rabbi said Beria. Some of the farmers say Bria, Bifnei Atzmai Hoya. Like David just brought up, like the Shamir, there were certain creations that Kadosh Baruch Hu made. Now, wait a minute. Right? Isn't there a pasuk in Kehillas that says there's nothing new under the sun? And so if you remember in Pirkei Avos it says some things were created ben hashmashas, and the tachash was one of them, and the shamir was one of them. Because otherwise we would have a problem that Kadosh Baruch Hu created something after the beginning of creation, and now there's no yesh me'ayin, there's only yesh me'yesh. Okay, we can.
Bilam's donkey.
What? Yeah,
Bilam's donkey.
Yeah, Bilam's donkey. So the donkey, Mamela, he was for sure created, by the regular creation. But the question was the fact that he was able to talk. That could happen later. All right. Anyway, let's go back to good point. Now, so Chacham were never clear on if it's a Behem or a Chaya. Now, here comes the famous thing Rabbi say, I have a Shita, Lanias Daiti, that anything, not anything, I shouldn't say this, it's an exaggeration, but a lot of the fables, Aesop's fables, etc., all come from Chazal, but they got mutilated over the centuries. This is one of them. This is the famous unicorn. So Karen Achas, the Gemara says that this tachash was a unicorn. The Karen Achas. We don't know if it's chay or a behemoth, if it was wild or it was domesticated. However, it had one horn in its forehead. Moshe Rabbeinu only had it for that period of time when he needed it. And he made the cover for the Mishkan. By the way, over here we see also that the whole Mishkan is called by the word cover. Covering, because it's not just the michzeh. He made the whole Mishkan. He didn't make the whole Mishkan from the Tachash. He only made the coverings. So you see that the whole Mishkan is called based upon the coverings. The Nignaz, and then it became hidden. So the Gemara says, so since it had a horn, the Gemara thought, that must mean that it's kosher. Rabbi Yehudah, because Rabbi Yehudah said, Adam Rishon brought a carbon, and it was the most unique carbon that was ever brought. Because so apparently it would seem that it was the only unicorn, and that's why it was so precious. In other words, he brought the only one in existence. That's what it seems, right? Because he had a shiur, and he brought that shiur. It was a unicorn. So the pasuk says like this: when the pasuk, if you take a look at the pasuk in Tehillim, well, the Tehillim Zugers should know this pasuk very well. Mafris. So what does this mean? So is this better in front of Hashem than the bull that has horns and has hooves? So what does that mean? So since Adam Rishon brought this as a carbon and he followed halacha, that's the Gemara the premise seems to be that Adam Rishon followed all the halachas. So he would have brought only something that's kosher, and we see that you don't really have to have two horns. Even a single one horn can be kosher. Morah says, wait a minute, Makrin Tarti Mash. Morah says, what do you mean? That's Rabbi Yehuda's raya. Makrin seems to be two horns. So Morah says, Amar of Nachman Yitzchak, no, mi carrying sieve. In other words, it doesn't say that's not the way that we pronounce it, but it's a little bit of a Creek sieve, or it's a drush. It's machlokes neachronim. If this is a Creek sieve, or it seems more like that you can just read it mi karen. That what is better? In other words, what was the greatest carbon? Greatest carbon was it was a karen. It only had one karen. Mi karen. Isn't it better than the thing that has only one karen? So, by the way, Reb Moshe Zatzal has a different take on this completely. He holds that even though this one only had one Karen, so you have to work out how the heredity, what's the guy's name? The famous monk over there worked out heredity, how behemoths came from that one behemoth that had only one Karen. So it's not like Adam Rishon slaughtered the only unicorn, because from that could have come other unicorns. So in other words, he was the granddaddy of all the shavarim, of all the oxen and all the bulls. And some of them occasionally have one Karen. That's the rareness of a unicorn. It only appears every once in a while. And it wasn't the only one. That's what it seems like from Reb Moshe. So Reb Moshe holds that that's the raya, that they must be kosher, because the very fact that all the kosher oxen and bulls come from that one, right? He was the Zayda. So Mamela, all of them have to be kosher. From where do they get their kashrus from? From the original one. So I can't go into it. I'll just throw you in a very interesting shaila. When they do genetic engineering and they change around a behemoth, there's a big machlokes today. Can the behemoth still be kosher when it has something of, let's say, a chazer, or it has something of a camel or something, or not? You change the genetic, the DNA. So that's not for now, but it seems like that something changed in the DNA over the centuries. If it had at first one horn, and then it developed over the centuries into two horns. It's a different DNA, but the raya according to Reb Moshe is that if it had only one horn at that time, so a one-horned ox is okay, and all the other oxen that came from it are kosher because it was kosher. Okay. Anyway, where it says, I believe min behemoth. So if that's, why can't we bring a raya from there? The Morah had a shaila if the tachash was a behemoth, was a chaya, because since it only had one horn, so it seems like that the tachash only had one horn, and it was like the sharp part, that's what it's called, sharp part, that Adam Rishon brought as a carbon. The chaya was a behemoth. Morah says no. There's another type of a chaya that was brought that was called a keresh. Now, what's the keresh? It's also a unicorn, and it is a very, very powerful thing that apparently appears from time to time. That seems to be the source of many of the, as I said, the fables that Goyim saw these things. So the keresh is a that was a wild animal, and the wild animal had only one horn. So you see that a unicorn might be, because it could be chayu, where it says it might be like a keresh, or it might be like the tachash. So since we don't know, that's why the Gemara had a suffix. So, from here, I just want to tell you, there's a very interesting rule. I'm going to try to say this fast. When, let's say, somebody like Reb Kivega, we just said, says tzarachian. So tzarachian doesn't mean he had no idea. Tzarachian means he had a svara like this, and a svara like that. And Mameli said tzarachian. It's not like if one of us would say tzarachian means, I don't know, I have no idea. When I say it means I have no idea, I really have no idea. But when Reb Kivega, the Gemara says that they have a suffix if it's a behem or a chaya. So what came out at the very end? I don't know if it's like a tachash or if it's like a keresh. The Gemara is saying something very, very, very profound over here. Okay, let's see the Mishnah. The Mishnah goes back to what we were talking about before. Psilas habeged. Now those that say kigavna and Ruza the Shabbos, Friday night, don't know this stuff. But those of us that say by Memad Likin, Mitzvah Hashem will be saying it again. I hope in the shul soon. So we say this every Friday night. Psilas habeged, something, a wick that's made out of clothing. Shekip levelei. So if you fold it over, but you didn't run it through the fire a little bit, so it can be Kabel Tuma, because a beged, if you fold it over and you made it into wicks, you're going to make it into wicks. That's not a permanent change. You folded it, you could unfold it. So the Tanakama hold over here, that's Rebbe Eliezer, that it's still makabel tuma, because folding is not good enough to change something. So when we change something, it means that it's not a beged anymore. Therefore, it's not a kli. And if it's not a kli, it can't be makabel tuma. So and you can't use it for to be madlik. Why? Because it's makabel tumah. Rabbi Kiva says Tairahi, it is Tairu madlikumba, and therefore you can be madlik it. Why? Because he seems told, as we'll see in the Gemara, that folding is considered to be a permanent change. So Morah says, so we rather. So by tumah we can understand the machlokes between Rebbe Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva. Rebbe Eliezer, so people and a mile, that folding over is not a permanent change, and therefore you can't use it for a wick because it's a kli, and a kli is makabel tumah. And the cloth that you're using is like it was before. Rabbi Kiva saw people, folding over helps. And it's not what it was before. It's not an article of clothing anymore. But when we come with being mad liquid, why does this apply to Shabbos? So the Gemara is going to say various things. Amar Rebbe Elazar, Amar Rabbi Shia, V'chen Amar Rabbi Barahava, we're talking about over here, this cloth is exactly 3 fingers. That means the width of 3 fingers by 3 fingers. And we're talking about when you're lighting it on Yom Tov. So that what do we learn from over here? The Kula Alma is Rabbi Yehudah the Amar. Everybody holds the Rabbi Yehudah Masikin Bekalim, that you can take. Let's say you have a chair. And I mean, a chair would be a very big thing. But let's say you want to throw it into the fireplace. Theoretically, you could do it because a chair is not muktzah. So you need firewood on Shabbos. You throw the whole chair into the fireplace. But let's say that you have a kli that broke on Shabbos. So first of all, it's noilad. Every time that you have something that was whole before Shabbos, and now it's not whole, now it's broken, so it's muktzah, so you can't throw it into the fireplace. So Gemara says that the kulam islu de ula, everybody holds of ula's din. So that when you light on Shabbos, so you have to make sure that the larger part of the wick is sticking out from the oil. So what does that mean? So if you look at Rashi and others, they explain that it's almost like, if you want to get a little bit of a good idea of this, the Rashi in the beginning of Ba'aloischa says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell Aaron, Ba'aloischa Saneiros, so Rashi says, Sheitei shal heves oila me'eleho, so that the fire should burn by itself. Because on Friday night, you don't want to chas v'shalom get into the position where, you're lighting the neiros and then you have to fix them up. So you have to have buroi v'yotze, that most of the wick is sticking out, and that's the way it's supposed to burn. So what do they have the machlokes? So Rabbi Eliezer Savi keep Rabbi Eliezer holds that folding something over is not good enough for that. So now the problem is, as soon as you lit a little bit, so now it's like a broken kli. And what are you lighting with a shever kli? That's muktzah, you're not allowed to do it. However, Rabbi Kiva holds that as soon as you fold it over, it's no longer a garment. What is it now? It's like one big wick, or it becomes wicks. But in terms of kliyolov, it's not a kli. And when you are lighting it, it's like taking a piece of wood, which is mutter. It's already broken. Like let's say you go outside, you take some firewood. You took a piece of wood, not a kli. So, by the way, just very interesting that when people go for a walk on Shabbos and they like a walking stick, so you can't just reach down and pick up a piece of wood because it's not a kli, and then it's the reverse, it's muktzah. So, and especially if it fell off the tree on Shabbos, it's even worse. But even so, just when it's laying there, what do you have to do? You have to pick it up before Shabbos to say, I'm going to use this as a walking stick. I want to take this nice walk on Shabbos. And, these days, that's about the only thing you can do. Even then, it's not so posh that you can go out. But anyway, you'll walk on Shabbos, so you have to take it and make it into a kli before Shabbos. Mamish, the almost opposite of this Gemara. So we'll just finish up. I want to finish up with one halacha, Rabbi say. So Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef said, "I'll bring you right behind the This is what we learned in the Bais. It says shalosh mitzum somais. We said that if it's this tiny little piece of cloth, fully down on my halacha, I didn't know what that halacha was. So by the way, again, we learn that from the Amoraim. Even though Rav Yosef never had some kind of a ma'aser, the Gemara brings in many places that he forgot a lot. So he had moments of dementia or something like Elenu. But then his Talmidim used to help him out. They reminded him. But he was honest enough always to say, I remember that there's a thing called shalosh al shalosh mitzum tzamais, but I don't remember what it was negeya. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, since we learned before, so we see that he holds like Rabbi Yehudah. So the Gemara is going to ask, that Belina that we're going to learn tomorrow night. I just want to learn one little halacha. We try to finish off always with halacha psuka. So, sorry, 1 second. Okay. So, one halacha over here is about using a shofar from a behema to meya. So the Ran writes from this Gemara, it's really Gemara Rosh Hashanah of Chavav, but he brings this Gemara. Like it says in our sugya, so now the Yehudah brings this down, and he says on the Kash on the Ran, he says in our Gemara, it says Efshalahamid psil l'doifen sukkah, a pill l'doifen sukkah. He brings very interesting shaila. I don't think we would try this at home, but if you happen to have a pet elephant, so and he listens to you, so you stand him down, and he's a big guy, so he's going to be one wall of your sukkah, right? And it's a beferish Gemara in sukkah. So the Gemara says over there, it's right in the beginning of Chav Gimel. So the Gemara says, "Upil hu chaya tamei ben kosh lachid." You can't eat it. And this is clearly Melech Shamayim. So the Chashochan says that you can't bring a raya. He disagrees with the Nadi Yehudah. He says, and the damas pill the doifen sukkah in the shofar. So the Taina he says is like this. He says, so these things you can't do the shofar and the tefillin and the tachash. These are things that you have to use a balchai. It has to be something kosher. But normally a sukkah, most of us do not, I don't think, use an elephant. Even if we would have an elephant handy, we wouldn't use an elephant. We wouldn't buy an elephant bedafka from Lighter Sukkah. So, maybe a picture, right? But not a real elephant. So, Mamela, it's not necessary to use it. So then you could use an elephant. But something that is necessary to use a behema, so that has to be a behema tahira, a kosher behema. Okay, Matzi Shabbos, Rabbi say, I assume we should learn Shabbos' daf. Last week we did it, I think, about an hour after Rabbeinu Tam. I don't have, I don't have the Zmanim in front of me. Anybody have a Zman?
So I think Rabbeinu Tam is.
I left it.
I think Rabbeinu Tam's 8:34.
So 8:34. So let's say 8:30. Say, is 9:30 too late, Rabbi say? I'm just going to say, because I may have another, like I had today. We're trying. We have a lot of conferences going on. There's a lot of chaylim, and there are a lot of shilas, halacha l'maisa, and some of them are mamish pikuach nefesh. So I don't know what's going to happen over Shabbos. Maybe we should hope they should all refer shalema. So we should also be mispal for Rabbi Ginsburg, who's in an ace tzara. So please be mispal for we don't say the Rav, but he's a Rav Gadol, Ar Yosef ben Edel. Okay, and all the other Chaylim Be'ezes, Hashem Yisbarach, should have, Dr., by the way, just Dr. Yisachar Greenberg is doing better, Baruch Hashem. I spoke to him on the phone, and Rabbi Chill is, I think, out of the hospital. He told me last night he's coming home today, so I'm assuming he came home for Shabbos.
So Yisachar is able to communicate, and he's doing better, Baruch Hashem?
Yeah, so the communication was not great because Nebuch poor Yisachar had to talk to me like not through texting. He texted with everybody perfectly. With me, he had to speak, and in fact, I hung up. I didn't want him to pick up. I just wanted to leave a message, but he's a tzaddik, so he picked up. So he's very hoarse, but he sounds like he's very positive. And Rachel says that Bais Hashem Yisbarach is doing well. So we don't want to count our chickens yet, but Bais Hashem Yisbarach is doing better. As I said, there are people that still need a refuah shalema. Please have in mind my son Naftali also is a little bit not doing so well, but he's going to do better. Miss Hashem over Shabbos. Shabbos Simi Lizak refuah cry the love for all the chaylim. Everybody should have a wonderful Shabbos Simi Hashem with rest and hopefully nigunim shall please besimcha rabba, and we're going to learn Masi Shabbos Simi Hashem at 9:30 and beyond. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody. Kol tov.